Picturing the future frequently contours sociology's present. So when I talk about Quo Vadis, I'm obviously looking into where are you heading. Over its formative years, for instance, the likes of Comte, Wollstonecraft, Marx, Weber, Durkheim, we can carry on, pointed to brighter futures to shape their versions of sociological thinking. That bequest, no doubt, spawns my musings today. In any case, looking back to the 1950s and 60s, one branch of the discipline announced itself as a sociology of the future. It studied how given societies envisaged their improved futures and campaigned to realize these. These future makers of our immediate past shackled sociology to utopian thought. Creating and criticizing utopias was their calling card, and the likes of H.G. Wells and others claimed this as the essence of a proper sociology. Whatever the contributions of this particular approach, it resounded with colonial impulses. It mostly asserted Eurocentric concepts as its goal, with attendant class, race, and gender prejudices, and asserted these as universal social progress. Of course, the story is well known, but these futurists also nurtured an administrative approach to sociology, one that defines itself as a practical, scientific, and neutral problem-solving endeavor. Yet, who defines the problems for this sociology? Well, as Bourdieu notes, it usually is an amorphous state bureaucracy that is prepared to grant access to these sorts of studies, declare that they are relevant, and to pay the bills. I have no difficulty comprehending the comforts of this administrative tack, but I still worry about the promises of solutions, far less final ones, to trumped up and historically ordered social problems. Bauman showed us just how such thinking could nurture something like the Holocaust. One might also here ponder the horrors of South Africa's apartheid years, where sociology's complicity is often ignored. 3 architects were administrative sociologists, and one even became a prime minister. Their solutions ranged, and indeed Geoffrey Cronje, probably the most engaged of the 3, outlined his position at his inaugural lecture for a professorship in sociology. He proposed what he called a deterministische standpunt in die Sociologie, which is effectively a determinist scientific approach and something that would take state-defined problems of racialized societies after colonialism. What to do about this? His solution? The state should forcibly divide and develop separate racial communities to prevent blood mixing, miscegenation, and to maximize thereby social progress. These cold words would eventually inspire the bullets that drained life from so many in South Africa. Of course, not all administrative solutions lead to equivalent atrocities, but a problem-solution paradigm, it seems to me, seldom confronts the dangers that always lurk in calls for relevant, practical sociology, especially as defined by authorities of a given day. Such dangers did not go unnoticed in Gouldner's challenge to administrative sociology. By the 1970s, he felt that the welfare state and its free market capitalism were failing, as he put it, with the picks of 100 rebellions thrust into its hide. Administrative sociology and its dominant Parsonian functionalism had attached itself to that order. It was about, he thought, to face massive upheaval. New authorities were redefining relevant problem-based research that they were prepared to fund. Underestimating, to be sure, the tenacity of the neoliberal political rationales that were to come, he saw sociology drifting towards an inevitably critical future, a future composed of value-driven, reflexive, and self-aware analyses of changing social times. In the event, what happened was a sociology that diverted itself into new administrative forms and critical genres. The battle between these was nascent and severe in the 90s and up into the early 2000s. It produced an apocalyptic turn, which is what White and Saidi have called it, that alleged the impending demise of sociology. You referred to that earlier. We heard some quarters saying things like, too many disciplinary outsiders are sheltering in sociology departments. Too little applied research and empirical work is happening. Theory is completely disconnected from empirical foundations. And so the weary list goes on. But is this really so? After all, our strength has never rested with an imperialist consensus. Rather, it lies in a range of critical sociological imaginations. Despite the purveyors of the apocalypse, our discourse has flourished and continues to flourish, and it flourishes especially through critical narratives of our changing times. I would say sociology is better understood as a fluid patchwork of related discourses, not a pure consensus-driven discipline. Its diverse imaginations thread the changing warp and weft of a varied discursive fabric. However, calling for sociology to assert a core may affect something much more significant: the changing priorities of our university. Subduing academic to managerial priorities, some now rally behind hollow aspirations like excellence and innovation, favoring competition over collegiality and pitting colleagues against one another. This corporate context enables some identities to thrive by denigrating others. Needless to say, academic ideas and the pursuit of discussion of those ideas takes very much a back seat, although today is a nice, healthy change to that. And without a core, what Stinchcombe calls a disintegrated discipline, sociology is devalued, dependent on its numbers and hence the revenues that it can show it is bringing in. Pragmatically facing this predicament, a well-received public sociology has insisted on the significance of our diversity and our diverse discourse. As is well known, it positioned critical sociology as the conscience of professional, policy, and postmodern elements within the discourse. For me, though, sociology's fragmented conversations provide a different possibility: critically rethinking how to engage its indistinct object, which I shall call the social for now. To be sure, I don't think sociology should pursue the essence of society any more than it should claim to solve all social problems. It does not have to tie itself to a fixed concept of the social. Yet I refuse the death of the social claims, whether it come from Thatcher, Harvard, or indeed Harper, or indeed from Baudrillard, and it has come from Harvard too. Sure, the welfare state and its older accounts of the social are changing, but escaping the inequities, injustices, and problems of those societies does not demand that we abandon all concepts of society or the social. Rather, it requires us to reimagine this. Sociology's open-ended imagination might then focus on a central task: creating concepts. Along addressing the with, this sociology, whether quantitative, theoretical, phenomenological, ethnographic, or otherwise, will inevitably be varied. Its grammars of critique, however, will open meaning horizons to possibilities beyond, as an endless task. Specifically, it will raise, out of rigorous debate, concepts on which to narrate, engage, and pursue fluid social imaginings. It will spiral in and out of given contexts, working around presently accessible vocabularies to apprehend impossible social futures. In its concept formation, sociology can offer no certainties or guarantees. I think this is an important point. Of course, I recognize the radical discomfort of tolerating ambiguity, especially in cultures that demand determination. On the other hand, looking back, many social atrocities of the past century and a half emerged not despite, but precisely because of engineered solutions that promised inevitable progress. But I must end on a note of modesty. The indeterminacy of our predicament is inescapable. We cannot provide absolute assurances about social formations to come. Our only ally against totalitarian closure turns out to be an indefinite one, a fluid but insatiable promise to puncture our present social horizons. If this demands vigilance and a maturity to face uncertain futures, it also reminds us of Max Weber's striking warning: our weak eyes cannot see into the impenetrable mists of the future. Thank you.